Hi, just a note about this episode before it plays. Early in the episode, while Pete is talking, you may hear a printer in the background. The sound doesn't last long, only a few minutes, and apart from that small interference, we hope you enjoyed the episode as much as we enjoyed recording it.
Hello and welcome to the 9th episode of Talking Future, a podcast by the Entrepreneurs Forum where we talk to Northeast entrepreneurs about their work, their lives, and especially their views on the future and how they're innovating as they plan ahead. I'm Yvonne Bell, and today I'm talking to Pete Lillie, co-founder and commercial director of Presca Sportswear. Founded in 2014, Presca's aim is to provide the most sustainable and environmentally sound performance sportswear on the market by taking materials which pollute the earth, such as discarded plastic and fishing nets, and redesigning them into the performance sportswear which is built to last. Showing that sustainability and sportswear go hand in hand, in October this year, their work was recognised by Business Green at their 2020 Leaders Awards. Good morning, Pete.
Good morning. Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Could you just tell us, where did your passion for the sector start? Because obviously it hasn't just happened. You must have had a passion for environmental things all along. It sounds like it to me.
Yeah, it's been a journey. I mean, we founded what was called J&R Sportswear and then became Presca Sportswear in 2014. And it was all boiled around the fact that we were all keen, I'll say athletes, but I use the term very loosely in my case, but the other people in the organisation were keen athletes, and I like to consider myself that way, but not really. But essentially we realized we were advertising boards for everything we wore. When you're out about on the bike or when you're running or, whatever type of sport you're into, you're essentially, the kit you have on your back it says something, and didn't really fully understand what the kit on our back was representing. And it became a conversation, really. My business partner and the CEO of the company, Rob Webben, he came up with the idea about the recycled sportswear, because essentially we realized we were advertising boards, and when we realized what we were advertising and almost when you dig a bit deeper what it represented, it wasn't the best. It was essentially a legacy of the way the manufacturing processes work and the way that current processes work in terms of the way people buy. And we wondered whether there could be a better way, and a different way of doing things.
What about before that, though? I mean, when you came through your sort of youth, what were you thinking of then? Were you just into athletics and that was it? Or did you come into the field of manufacturing?
No, well, interesting. I mean, I was always into sport as a kid, and I was kind of, classic kind of northeastern kid, I guess, where as soon as you came in from school, you're out kicking the football in the street and getting shouted at by the neighbours for breaking the fence and all that kind of thing, So that's where my passion for sport, I guess, began. And my friends that's what we did. We sort of went out the house, and it sounds a bit sort of stereotypical and a bit, but it's true. It's what happened. You went out the house as soon as you came in from school and came back in when the tea was ready. When your dad was yeah, exactly. And the whole point of it really was we were always out and we're always enjoying it and we're always running and I say the kicking the ball around in a bike or chasing each other or being chased. It was kind of and to me, it became, if you like, my career, which was based around working for a lot of startups and kind of setting up commercial plans and strategies for startups. But in my spare time, I've always either kicked a ball or rode a bike, or I coach kids on the athletics front now. And I remember when I was a kid, I was a little scrote running around Clever Athletics track on the outside, actually causing trouble. And one of the coaches inside said to me, instead of shouting your mouth off on the outside, why don't you come down on the track and have a run around on this side of it? And I did, and I loved it. And I think for me, that kind of the ability to express yourself through sport and just find the love of sport, if you like, has been with me throughout, even my career in tech and everything. I've always been active, and it was always seemed contradictory to me that a market sector that encouraged activity in sport and the love of the outside could have such a negative impact on the environment. And I don't, again, it's not a kind of evangelical thing. It's just to say that by default, that's what happened because there wasn't the awareness previously.
Yeah.
We've been very lucky because we started without the legacy. We started on a full understanding of what the impact was, so we could set up a company that would almost try to counteract that and look for the positives, really.
Yeah. So you're actually bringing what you really enjoyed, which was the sport and outdoor stuff, into a business that you could actually make a difference.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, it sounds good. I sort of explained in the introduction what you do, but can you go into a bit more detail about, you know, the fact that you use plastics and fishing nets? There's something else I read that you use. A carpet. Do you go into the sea for this sort of stuff?
Yeah, and I'm down Saltburn every Sunday morning with a net, trawling through, and a pair of waders trawling through the North Sea, you know, with the surfers picking up basketballs and fishing nets. It doesn't quite work like that, but the process itself and the way that we set the business up really was to see what sustainable materials that were being produced out there were fit for purpose. And when we first started, there was probably one or two that you could say could be used with the right mix to become performance sportswear. And essentially the process is that the plastic's melted down into pellets, and that pellet gets turned into fibre, and that fibre gets interwove together, and that becomes the material you use. But it's kind of as simple as that, really. And
so you made that sound very easy, but it's
well,
not.
It's the process actually, and what's been really interesting is there was a survey done by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation that said only 1% of clothing that is made to be recycled is actually recycled back into clothing. So in other words, the key here is that when people think they're putting things into recycling, is it downcycling or is it recycling? So downcycling means it gets another iteration of life and then it becomes end of life. Where what we're trying to do, and a big push for us as a company right now, and we've actually, we'll probably talk about this later on, but one of the things that we're most proud of in our journey so far is that we've come up with a process that recycles recycled material, working with a local company, Poseidon. And that's huge, because what that means is that there's that 1% that is, you know, part of a $100 billion plus industry right now. If you look at that 1%, we can change that, and we can actually make recycled material recyclable. And it's something that we have taken a kind of a conscious effort and worked with, as I say, with the help of Tees Valley and you know, the grants that we've had from those guys, saying, okay, if we do this, does that mean our entire range never needs to leave the circle? So in other words, it's not a pause effect, it's a flywheel, it's a consistency that actually once that kit is made, it doesn't leave the circle level. And then once you finish your kit, if you give it back to us, we'll recycle it again, which means it's a constant. And so the impact of the idea was out, the impact of our kit is zero in terms of once it's in there, it never leaves that again. So it doesn't go in until it doesn't go into, you know, whatever else would be doing if it wasn't turned back into material again and back to sports kit.
Yeah. It would be nice to think that was the case for everything, but it's not, is it? That's very much ahead of the game.
Well, the thing is this industry that I said, which is, you know, it's huge. It's £100 billion industry worldwide, and you know, it's made, you buy it, it goes to landfill. And if you think about that kind of linear process, it's very detrimental to the planet. But you know, the thing that we try to say within the company is that there's people spread fear, uncertainty, and doubt about the future and what's happening, etc. And we're saying, look, there's no need to think like that. You know, there's a really clean, clear future that actually by default will start having a really positive impact on the future and on the planet, and changing that model and making it more circular. And as I said, there's a lot of legacy in this, so you can't really, you know, go finger pointing and say, oh well, you're doing really nasty things, because the truth is people until probably the last 10 years didn't really understand the negative effect that everything was happening. So, but the difference now is to try and change that model to a more kind of hopeful and proactive model, where when people wear clothes, the clothes are actually, you know, are almost rented by one person. And they pay, you know, a £35 rental fee for 6 years or 7 years, or however long they have it, and then it goes back into it, and then it's rented by somebody else for another 6 or 7 years. So it's almost like a service model, if you like, where it's you know, we don't buy, use, throw away. We just borrow it for a 6-year period, and then it goes back into the process, and somebody else borrows it for another 6-year period, but the impact stays the same, you know.
This is obviously it's your USP, but does this mean that you're the only ones doing it, or do you have competition?
Well, in this process, this recycled material, we're the first in terms of pushing this to the marketplace. as I say, there is a segment that is growing extremely rapidly now, which is the sustainable sportswear marketplace. And it's growing so quickly, the size of the market is undefined. And we like to think we're at the forefront of that because, the big benefit we have, to be blunt, was that we didn't bring legacy to this. What we brought is a kind of understanding of what we wanted to do and a real kind of passion to, make properly sustainable sportswear. And there's been a kind of conscious push, I think, now by, you look at Nike, you look at Adidas, you look at those guys who are doing ranges, but obviously they are ranges, not an entire process. But because there's that push, I think that we've got an option, and I don't want to be too sort of grandiose about it. We are leading the market in this in terms of looking at that process in its entirety. So right from, using the factory with renewable energy to what happens at end of life of the kit, and looking at the longevity of that kit, which is key really, because you don't want to buy a kit that, you don't want to, it's a value thing, right? From a consumer point of view, you don't want to buy a kit that lasts, one season, then you've got to throw it away and think about buying it again. You want longevity, and things should be designed for longevity. And when you are finished with them, that you need to be comfortable that actually you're not just filling landfill, you're keeping that circle going, Yeah.
How do you find the balance between promoting this sustainability and athletic performance, but also, you get children generally wanting the new kit for the sports team. They want the new badges and things. Is that something that we're going to have to educate them not to want that, because you're saying we want sustainable stuff, not stuff that you just keep churning back, unless it's sustainable, I suppose, unless it's reusable, but they're not usually, are they? They usually just chuck them away.
Well, yeah, and the thing is that I think kids never want to be told stuff, and I don't mean that negatively, because actually it's not up to us to tell them, they tell us. And actually, what you do find is that I did a presentation to a couple of schools, and I went in and I thought, okay, this is going to be an uphill battle, and I'm not quite sure how I'm going to position this. And I've got 3 daughters, and my youngest is just turning 13, and the eldest 18, and trying to understand how to speak to them at their level was, I was in my head, I was like, oh, it's going to be a big challenge, and I've got to make this all cute. And I went in and I said, right, tell me who knows what about sustainability. And out of a class of 30 kids, 28 hands went up. And then they just started talking. And I was like, I actually learned more in that lesson from them than the other way around. And it was, I think the truth is that they're the drivers of this. What we are is we need to be the vehicle that allows them to do what they want to do, not the other way around. And actually what you do see, millennials specifically, I mean, one of the big marketplace for this is kind of millennials and downwards, in terms of these are the people driving the discussion. These are the people that are driving this, and the kids coming up, there's going to be this, and there really is like a meeting in the middle where you've got millennials and the kids coming through right now who are going, this is so important. This is so critical. Why aren't you doing more about it? So
you can say, actually, we are. Here's what we're
exactly
doing.
that. And it's about being that vehicle for change, really. And I think what really surprised me, because I thought, we've got a 50-year-old bloke going to talk to them about sustainability. What are they going to look at? And actually the engagement levels and the way that they were kind of driving the discussion and actually saying, well, what are you doing about it? And how can we make a difference? And that's them, not me, So I was just sat listening, and I was actually blown away by it. A couple of them just go, you know what, if there's anything kind of underpins the validity of what you're doing, that was it,
Yes. Well, it's their future, not our future.
Exactly.
It's theirs, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And what about the fact of, getting it's fair enough them all being sustainable and all lovely, but how do you make money at it? Can you, has your business since 2014 developed well enough to say, we're doing this and this is the right way to go?
Well, the litmus test is always when you go out for investment. I think it's always kind of how you think you've got a really good idea, but how valid is this in the commercial way, and do people buy what you do? Not in terms of just physically buying the product, but in terms of the concept and what you're trying to achieve. And we had an interesting journey with this, because when we first started up, we said, okay, well, how are we going to drive the company forward? And as I mentioned at the time, there was probably 2 or 3 properly sustainable fabrics that you could use that were fit for purpose to make cycle kit out of. So we didn't have the breadth of product and the breadth of materials really that we needed to use. Now, fast forward that 6 years and we're talking about 70, 80, 90 materials that are all fit for purpose that are incredible. And that's seen the surge in the marketplace. But when you're looking and when you're first starting, the key to it was say, are we investable? What's the investability of this company? And who would possibly invest in us? And interestingly, we tried to raise £50,000 via the standard route. And by the standard route, I mean, go to a finance house who runs the checks and balances. And for £50,000, they said, no, you're too early. You need to produce more balance sheet. And this was probably a year and a bit into the business. And we took that as a real kick in the teeth, to be honest. And it was like, this is, we thought we had something here, but okay, we'll plow even more of our money into it. We'll make sure, and that's the point where you've got to go, okay, well, this is now not a lifestyle thing. This is your life decision because it's the money that you've got, and you've got to take a real punt anyway. And we believed in it enough. And once we had that kind of initial turn down, which we were actually fairly confident we could get, but when we found out we weren't going to get this loan, it was tough. But we said, do you know what? We believe in it. So we put more money in on our own and actually carried on the conversation. Anyway, fast forward 3 months from that decision to be turned down. And in the background, I was having conversations with some guys who were very interested in what we do, who were serial investors, but also were ahead of quite large American firms who looked at what we did. And we were carrying this conversation in the background. Anyway, long story short, 3 months after getting turned down and thinking, right, okay, let's refinance and put more of our money, which we did in the short term, we got a £600,000 investment.
That's a bit different.
From there, from guys who are head of JP Morgan for the US, and the other one's a chairman of a fairly major company. And it's just that kind of, if you believe in something strongly enough and are willing to put your own capital at risk because the belief is there, what you tend to find is that other people will believe it too if it's a good enough argument. And
they'll have faith. They'll have faith in you.
Yeah, exactly. And they believe your passion and your commitment. And from our perspective, it wasn't a money-making thing per se. It was a value-driven company. And actually what happens on the back of it, and you tend to find when you passionately believe in something and the business case is right, the profits will come anywhere. And for me, it was the biggest confirmation and kind of support and underpinning and kind of bolster to everything we did to as I say, to be locally turned down for 50k and then to get 600k 3 months later from people who have a heck of a lot of in-depth knowledge about what is investable and what isn't. I thought was a real bonus and a bolster, and actually gave us the confidence to say, right, let's go full blast at this now. I mean,
that's a huge investment as well, isn't it? It wasn't just peanuts, was it?
No, exactly. And it gives you the confidence that, look, if you do it once, you can do it again. And that means the next iteration of the company, you go out for further investment and you say, okay, look, let's not just go for 600, let's go for something a bit bigger and a bit larger, and something that would actually make a stamp just not kind of nationwide but worldwide, and there's a marketplace there that we can actually get and be at the forefront of.
Was getting finance one of your biggest obstacles, or was the manufacturer an obstacle, or what or was there anything?
All of it.
All of the above.
All of the above. Yeah. I mean, but that's why we did it. If it was going to be easy, somebody would have done it before us. And if it was going to be easy, then the marketplace would have existed, and we wouldn't have been different, and we wouldn't have had something unique to say, and we wouldn't have been as investable, truthfully. So that by the default that things are hard, tough, and difficult to do in manufacturing, in development of clothes, in pretty much everything. But that's the point. That's the point of why you do it. You do it because it's difficult, and you do it because it gives you the opportunity to be first to market and to essentially own a marketplace that is up and coming. And as long as you passionately believe in what you do, then the three should merge together,
Yeah. And obviously that's sort of 6 years ago that you started, and I take it was a gradual incline of how things were going. But what happened at the beginning of this year with COVID? Did that make a difference to your business?
It did. I mean, I think that to me, what COVID did in the short term is it gave us a huge hit. You know, we lost a lot of revenue on the back of being a fairly events-based company in terms of people like to wear our kit for mass participation, and they would order in not just ones and twos, but hundreds, 200s, 300s. And when all those events disappear, the teams that were entering those events cancel and say, well, we don't need the kit because we've got events anymore. So our events calendar was literally wiped out in a 2-month period. In a 4-week period, and then the revenue in a 2-month, which was hugely significant for us, because we'd planned marketing spend, we'd planned additional, all the revenues that we'd planned to spend were affected. But when you sort of take a step back and realize these are kind of thematic problems in terms of, if you look at the longer term view, and I think that the key for us was say, look, we deal with the now, but we carry on with the longer term view of the company. We carry on doing what we do because we believe in it. And what we do at the moment, in between at the COVID, is we set up small solutions to get us through this. And we also look at, right, okay, what are the bits of the business we haven't been concentrating on that maybe this gives us the breathing space to concentrate on, to start promoting? Because when you're in the midst of the kind of, generating revenue and looking at how we develop the business on a plan, sometimes you can kind of get so far into the mix that little space that you get, if you kind of can be calm in the eye of the storm, if you like, it's that bit about, okay, well, this will end eventually. What we've got to do is survive to the point where we will still be around at the end of this, but not distract from our longer term plan. And then you've got to say, okay, well, what from now will allow us to drive, what pieces of the business will allow us to survive during this period or even thrive during this period, and then meet to our longer term goals, when we're over this, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's a common thing in the people that I've spoken to business wise. It's sort of made them just sit back and think, because they've actually got time to think, because there's actually no phone calls coming in. So it gives people a break, doesn't it? Or it gave people a break. It wasn't necessarily anticipated or wanted, but it has given people a chance to just set their stall again, hasn't it?
Well, to be honest, from us, we haven't done anything different. So I wouldn't say that anything that we've done during lockdown is different. So we haven't changed our goals, we haven't changed the way we work. But what we have done is looked at the offers to the public to make sure that they're aware that we're out there. And what became kind of apparent is that we, from our perspective, is we have a sort of direct to customer, if you like, Presca branded offer that we'd almost let grow organically. And it was okay, but it wasn't brilliant, because all of our time and effort was spent in teamwear and making sure that we had a kind of a base from there. And what we've realized is, that we were the best kept secret in sportswear, and it wasn't, and that was the thing we absolutely didn't want. So it was trying to look at how we tell our story to a wider marketplace and generate that message. And actually this time allowed us to look at the direct to customer marketplace and look at, okay, well, look, are we available to people to buy in ones and twos? And actually we should be more available. And is the product offerings that we have fit for purpose in that? So we spent a lot of time literally taking it back and saying, right, okay, how do we make us more accessible to that direct to customer marketplace? And that's really what we've done. So in one respect, and again, I am 100% not making this kind of light of the situation, because it's been extremely difficult for lots of people, but it did give us the chance to look and, as you say, sort of almost reevaluate marketplace and say, well, should we try to make more of an impact within this market space, I guess.
Yeah. People have had to think again, haven't they?
Yeah, and it's been interesting.
And now a note from this episode's sponsor.
Hi there, my name is John Burns and I'm the MD of Diamond Group. Diamond Group are a North East based office technology company which supply most product to do with the office, such as photocopiers, printers, scanners, document management software, laptops, hosted telephony, telephone systems, mobiles, vehicle trackers, office furniture such as desks, chairs. We do some office refits. We also supply training to businesses on everything from leadership management, apprenticeships. There's basically nothing we can't supply business with, really. Any IT need, we can look after you. If you're interested, you could give us a call on 0191 519 3700, or you can contact us via our website www.diamond-group.net. Thank you.
So this year you launched your sustainability strategy, I believe, setting out your goals to become carbon neutral by 2020. How's that going to happen?
Well, it is this thing about designing for longevity.
Sorry, it was 2022 anyway.
Yeah. I was going to say, I kind of worried a little bit. Then I was like, okay, for us, it's about fulfilling a promise, really, to us as a company and to the people that bought into us, but also to our clients. And it's not just a stamp. It's something that we inherently believe in terms of, look, how do we make the business as sustainable and as environmentally friendly and as kind of proactively available? We're not protectionist about what we do at all. You know, we want more people. We want to be the flag bearers for this, but we want other companies to copy us, and we want to say, okay, look, there is a way of doing it, and being the proof point that, you know, when other companies look to do it, we are almost the blueprint of this. So the goal to do this as quickly as we've said, and the way we're going to push to do it is by looking at longevity in clothing range. So that's right from the start, from kind of, okay, from the materials we source to the way that they're produced to how we manufacture our kits. So looking at factories that, you know, our factory uses 100% renewable energy, to then looking at the kit itself and saying, okay, look, is this kit truly designed for longevity? And sustainability is not just about using recycled material, because as I said, there is a difference between kind of downcycling and recycling. We don't just want to be a pause button. We want to be part of that overall kind of circular solution. And, you know, buying a kit out of recycled material is a good start, but what next? You know, it's always the what next question. So that whole approach to circularity means that the next iteration of designs we do, now we've been able to work with Poseidon and again with the support of the university and the Tees Valley, it's allowed us to then push to say, okay, well, every kit we design literally from now moving forward, how do we design that kit? Is it designed for longevity? If you look at the panels that it's made, if you fall and you know, and you rip, what you do on cycle, can that panel be replaced as opposed to throwing it away and starting again? So it's about looking at longer term things like, right, do we look at how we take returns in and repair them, as opposed to telling people to buy a new bit of kit? And actually, when you look at people say, well, aren't you losing money on that? But you're not, because what you're doing is it's a value-based decision. So, you know, the world is a big place and a lot of people can buy sportswear. So the fact that we're seen to be producing goods that are you know, that have that longevity about them, but actually, you know, if you do have a bit of road rust and come off, if it's replaceable, we can replace it. And it's about designing kit to be replaced rather than be, you know, thrown out. And then when it's at end of life, it's okay, well, we'll take it back, send it back to us, because you've, you know, as I say, I mean, it's a bit of a kind of off the cuff statement, but essentially it really is that. It's like, you know, you've borrowed it for that 6 years, now we're going to take it back and reuse it and let somebody else borrow it for another 6 years, you know, that process.
The thing is, your garments aren't mega expensive. I mean, some of them are quite expensive, because obviously there are the design and everything, you know, allows you to get that amount for them. But you know, thinking of a woman's dress, a very expensive woman's dress, if you ripped it, you would get it repaired if it was worth it. So what you're saying is your garments are worth repairing. And you're encouraging that because of your beliefs, really.
Exactly that. You know, things should be designed from now on for longevity. It shouldn't be, you know, this linear model of kind of fast fashion is the antithesis of what we're trying to do here. And actually, it's a bit like when you get a bit of kit you like, and you could have and this is going to sound horrible, but when you get a bit of kit you like, you'll put it in the bottom of the washer, in the wash basket, and you'll go, and then you'll realize, oh, I wore that kit to cycle last week or a couple of days ago, and then you've got a drawer full of cycling kit on the right hand side. Now that cycling kit doesn't feel as good, doesn't look as good, doesn't want as good. So what you'll do is you'll go back to the kit you wore 2 or 3 days ago. Your mates probably won't want to cycle with you, but
I don't know whether we want to know this.
I know, yeah, but it's basically, it's that point of,
love it.
You know, people when they like stuff, they want to wear it, and they want to wear it again and again and again. And we've got to facilitate that, because actually that's the point. Yeah. The point is you wear kit that you like, and we should be encouraging that, because the longer the kit lasts, the better it is for the planet, the better it is for everybody wearing it. And actually, the more value you get from a cost perspective out of that bit of kit. So yeah, you can cut out the bit about the washing basket, because that was an awful analogy, but you know what I mean.
No, I think that is actually what people do. I've done the same myself with my gym stuff. I do like what I wear, but you've thrown me here. I'm thinking of that dirty basket.
I know. Well, that's why as I was saying, I was thinking, is this a really good analogy? But it is that, the truth is, it's like people like what they like, and it's why you have shirts that, good quality shirts. I've always thought it's worth spending the money on good stuff, but good stuff lasts. Yeah. And if you're comfortable in it, you like it, they like how it makes you feel. And I know from my own kit, we've got a jumper that we create that I love, and I've got, from before I started this, I don't tend to throw a cycle kit out, so I've got cycle kit from old, and you go, I can't believe I ever wore that stuff. And my wife goes mad, because you've got a kind of, a washing basket full, which I all do myself, by the way, so I don't know why she goes mad at me, because I end up washing it myself. There's another really important thing about this, is that, I was listening to a talk by the chairman of the CBI, about Caroline Fairbairn, and she was saying, she made this comment, and it really resonated with me, which was, it's not what people say. People won't remember what you say, but they'll remember how you made them feel.
Yeah, I get that.
And to me, that's what we should, that's our kit in total. It's not what we say about sustainability. It's not what we say about, the effect on its planet. It's how it makes you feel when you wear it. Mm-hmm. And if for, the messaging that comes around of it, about the way we do things, but actually the feel of the kit and the fact that it feels sporty and it is built for performance, those two things coupled together, irrespective of how many sort of marketing messages we put around it and all the rest of it, that's the point. It's how it makes you feel when you wear it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, I understand what you mean. So what would your tips be for those who want to reduce their carbon footprint? Because I don't honestly get it sometimes. I don't know what I should be doing.
There's a book by B.J. Fogg called Tiny Habits. And this book is nothing to do with sustainability at all. But what it is about is doing small things. And because I think the most terrifying thing about when people talk about climate change and they talk about the impact on the environment is all about, this is too big. And actually, it's confusing. And I don't know whether I should be doing this, doing that. What parts of this product should I recycle? What should I put in the real bin? I've got 4 bins outside, and I don't know which one I'm supposed to be putting stuff in now. And it's getting very difficult, and it's making my head hurt. And the truth is, it's about doing what you can with what you've got while you can. So in other words, doing little bits that will make a difference. And actually, those little bits then become habits, and they just become a way of life then. It's like putting stuff in recycling as opposed to well, just make it the default, and people by kind of nature as human beings, we don't like being told what to do. We don't like being beaten up with a stick saying, if you don't do this, the world will end and it's all going to go horribly wrong. So it's about not taking the weight of that on your shoulders, but actually doing the small things that will make a difference, but become kind of habitual, as opposed to being, I've done this today, therefore I don't need to work. Just do the little things that you're comfortable with in yourself. You're going to make the difference and make those the habits.
You're saying that book kind of helps you to do that.
Well, I think what the book does, and again, it's nothing to do with sustainability. It's about doing small things and making sure that those small things are easy to do. So don't take don't become, I am now an eco warrior and I'm going to shout at anybody who doesn't do what I do. Become the person that makes the difference just by doing little things. And if it makes you feel better within yourself for doing it, then brilliant, do that.
Yeah. And it'll make a difference overall.
Exactly.
If everybody did it. So moving on, what, in your opinion, will the face of the industry look like in 5, 10, 20 years? Do you see still progress coming from your type of thing?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think that there's a lot of greenwashing going on at the moment, but I also think there is a real push, and it's consumer-based pushes, for change. And I think that what I've seen when I go out to the kids, and I do the presentation to the kids in the schools, as I mentioned before, when I speak to clients at shows, when I talk to, big companies, we've just signed a deal with Ernst & Young to be their kind of preferred supplier for all their kind of corporate sportswear. And when I talk to them, that the key priority for those guys is now CSR policy and sustainability. And it turns out the chairman of Ernst & Young has also realised the huge impact we've got on the planet. So he's kind of made it a directive to make change. And what you're seeing is that in key kind of pockets in schools with millennials, with leaders of industry, they're now saying we have to do something about this now. So it's a consumer-based change that's happening. So the industry has to react to it. It's not a nice to have anymore. It's an imperative. And for us, being where we are at that kind of forefront of the sustainable sportswear industry, and we're agile and small enough to make those changes that we know now can be implemented across all our range. It's a real positive. And I think as an industry, it's going to be consumer driven, and that's what will make the change within our industry. It will no longer be a nice to have kit produced sustainably. It will be a necessity. And once it's consumer driven, then that will make that, that's the difference. That's the sea change.
And as a business, you can not take advantage of it, but go with it and keep your business going, because that's really, you're still wanting to make the business grow, aren't you?
At the end of the day, we're not a not-for-profit. We are a commercial organisation that is here to show that there's a difference in the marketplace. We are value-driven 100%, but we are a commercial entity, and sustainability is a commercial necessity. It's not a byproduct. If you create a business with sustainable ethics and value-based ethics, actually you are seen as being more investable now than purely kind of commerce-based companies. And all the reports coming out from BlackRock, from Barclays, from all those guys are now saying, look, value-based driven companies are the most investable in volatile situations. So when you look at value-driven companies, you look at the way that investors are looking now, and you look at when things like COVID happens, what they look to is, okay, well, where are the value-driven companies? Where are the value-based companies? Because they're the ones with the long-termism that actually we need to invest in now. We don't want the kind of the here today with lots of profit then disappears in 3 years' time. They want the 10-year KPIs that people are looking at now to start to build longevity into the business to enable that long-term thing, so they can waive the kind of thematic issues that we have at the moment and move on, really.
Yeah. I would imagine it should become part of your goodwill. Ultimately, if you sell your business, that should be seen as part of your goodwill.
Yeah, for me, and I've done quite a bit of kind of research on the back of this as well. And it was when we got the next level of the company, which is to look at, further investment and to expand and to become a lot more scalable. How attractive are we as a company, but our type of business, a kind of value-based business to investors? And it's becoming abundantly clear that actually the big investment houses now are going, we need to be looking at value-based companies because consumers are gravitating towards those companies now. And actually they seem to be the leaders in the marketplaces, Yeah.
Especially the younger ones.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other guys who are going to be running, jumping and swimming.
Exactly.
As we all should be,
So apart from going cycling, what are you looking forward to? What are you looking forward to in the business particularly?
I think it's probably the most exciting time that we've had in our business. We do have the issues around COVID, and I'm not blind to that. And I think it's naive to ignore them and not build factors into to look at solutions for that. But I think what we're seeing now is people are looking at long-termism, people are looking at longevity of business, and they're looking at what is seen to be a drive to look at more value-based companies. And for me, that's exactly where we are. And the most exciting thing for me is that, when we did started talking about this 6 years ago, when it was an idea about how do we commercialize this, there wasn't that push. And actually we were seen as being a bit off the wall and a little bit kind of, okay, well, why would you? It's quite nice and quite tweet, but it's never going to go mainstream. And over this 6-year period, we've seen an absolute sea change in the marketplace to say it from a nice to have to a necessity to a driver. So you go from it's a quirky thing to actually, yeah, it's a nice to have to actually it's really important. So we must have this too. Actually, this is the thing that's going to drive the business forward. And businesses that have this at their core are going to be extremely investable. And that to me has been the big sea change. And that's probably the most exciting thing, I guess.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. And you mentioned a book that you sort of recommend to people. But what about other businesses or entrepreneurs? Do you follow anybody? Do you think he or she's good? I like what they say. Do you follow anybody's principles, or is it all your own?
No. I mean, look, I'm the world's worst plagiarist. I mean, I kind of, I'll pull left, right, and centre from every.
Honest,
Yeah.
Anyway.
I take information as much as I can get. I mean, I'm reading in a book called Leadership in Turbulent Times at the moment, which is about the lessons from the US presidents, which I thought was particularly apt given the last week or so that's happened. But it's a really good book, and I tend to mix it. There's good books that are recommended by friends, but also people that you look up to and you think, okay, well, what are they doing and how are they doing things and how they affect. There's a guy, David Hyatt, who founded Howie's and co-founded Hite Jeans with his wife, and also do the thing called the Do Lectures. Now, he's a guy who essentially is the epitome of a value-based company, and what they do is they'll make jeans, but they make jeans at £200 a pop plus. But what they say is never throw these jeans out. We want you to wear these jeans forever, and we'll look to repair the jeans. And the methodology that they use, and I went on a course that he ran probably about 7 months ago, and I just listened to what he had to say, and it was a lot about this kind of value-based choices, I guess, and what I try to do again, and there's no innovation from my side of things from this. It's literally just taking pieces from people that I look to and admire and speak to and say, okay, look, how would you do things, and look at it, and then essentially taking it and applying it to what we do. And I think you have to do that, right? Nobody has all the answers by any stretch. So it's great to get input and impact, and it's amazing how many, especially in these times, right? What's been really interesting is when COVID happened and when the horrendous nature of it, people, instead of kind of going into the shells and becoming islands on their own, what I found out from the business community is that people who I didn't think in a million years, one, would have heard of me, and two, would actually spend the time to talk to me, were open. And, so I spoke to David on one-to-one. I spoke to other guys who you would kind of think, okay, multis who would say, who've been there, done that. And they were all open to conversation. And I found that, one, inspirational, but two, really encouraging. And it's one of these things that it's a kind of pay it forward thing. And if I can ever help anybody who's thinking of starting up, I do exactly the same, because you realize that it's almost like a collaboration of the willing, where, and people do push together, and people do want to make things work. And the protectionism isn't really there as it was probably about 20 years ago. When I was first in startups, it's a very different landscape. And I think it's different now.
That's good. Well, it's good to know that does happen. But I kind of guessed that it would, because people do want to give. They want to give back. And that's how you do it sometimes, isn't it?
100%. And, for me, moving forward, given everything that's gone on, the lessons that we should be learning is we cannot afford to ignore when people are hurting. But you also, the opportunity not to do that is that what you find out is it's a mutual kind of learning experience, if you like. And what you think is going to be a conversation, it's a bit like the kids in the school. When I went to do the class thing, what I learned was way more than I imparted in that lecture. And I think what you tend to find is that people are now a lot more open, because they realize conversations are a two-way thing.
Yeah, we do pick things up.
Yeah.
So for people starting up, what advice would you give them? What would your last tip of the week be?
Understand why you're doing it. And it's ultimate, understand why you're doing what you want to do. If it's to make money, it's probably the wrong thing, being blunt. If you believe passionately in what you do, then people will gravitate towards that. And what you'll find is that you'll create, if you like, your own tribe of people who will think like you do. And eventually what will happen is that will grow, and that will become a thing. And if it doesn't, then what have you lost? Because at least you've tried it. And if you believe strongly enough in it, likelihood is it'll succeed. And so it's about being value driven. It's about being kind of taking the risk, but taking the risk once you understand and it's an overused phrase really, but understand the why of your business. But the why of the business is, look, if you get up in the morning and you want to get into that business and you want to make it work, likelihood is it will work. And don't ever lose sight of why you're doing it in the first place.
Good tip. Well, thank you very much for that, Pete.
No worries.
Good to talk to you, and thank you.
Thanks a lot.